Finding a dangerous person among us is a problem that we will all face at some point in our lives. In this video, we will look into the wisdom of Stoicism to help us deal with this problem. Stoicism, a philosophy that emphasizes virtue, wisdom, and self-control, teaches us to deal with adversity with poise and serenity. It is from this viewpoint that we will look at the warning signs that someone in our lives might be dangerous. Stoicism helps us remember how important it is to pay attention to what other people do, not just what they say. "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy," said Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Roman emperors and a significant historical philosopher. We use that lesson here by staying true to our own ideals and not letting the presence of dangerous people get in the way of them. Throughout this video, we will be using past examples to show how important it is to stay calm and logical when there are signs of danger. This doesn't mean we should ignore our feelings. It means we should understand them and use them to help us make smart choices. Being self-aware and motivated is what drives us to spot the signs of a dangerous person, not fear or anger. This way, we protect our own safety while staying calm and kind. There are definitely hard things about facing the fact that there are people who can hurt us. Stoicism, on the other hand, gives us the tools to deal with this truth in a calm and practical way. This video is more than just a list of warning signs. It's a challenge to develop inner fortitude, mental clarity, and emotional toughness by recognizing these signs. We don't let fear or anxiety get the best of us. Instead, we arm ourselves with knowledge and wisdom, which are necessary for safely managing the complicated world of human relationships. Get ready to learn about yourself and take a trip as we look at 20 signs that someone in your life is dangerous through the changing view of Stoicism. Now is the time to take care of our health and the health of those around us, become more resilient, and gain wisdom. Now let's begin. Lack of understanding is the first sign. Not being able to relate to others is one of the most telling and scary signs that someone might be dangerous. To understand and care for each other is important in Stoicism because it helps people have good relationships and strong groups. If someone keeps unable to understand how another person feels, this is a clear danger sign that should not be ignored. Empathy is what holds society together. It helps us understand each other's happiness and sadness, which builds bonds of care and understanding. If someone doesn't have this important skill, they are not only disconnected from others, but they are also very far from the past ideals of living in peace with other people. Epictetus is another famous historical philosopher who shows us that we should pay attention to how other people act, not to judge them, but to figure out our own place in the world and how we can live a good life even when other people do bad things. When we see someone not caring about others, Stoicism tells us to see that it's their mistake, not ours, and to use this as a chance to remind ourselves of our own values of kindness and respect for others. Lack of empathy can also lead to other bad behaviors, like violence and trickery, because not being able to understand and respect other people's feelings can make you justify selfish and harmful actions in your own mind. Because of this, you need to keep an eye out for this sign, not only to keep yourself safe, but also to keep your relationships and community honest. When we face a problem like this, Stoicism tells us what to do: to notice, understand, and keep our ethics, without letting other people's lack of sensitivity make us less human. In the process, we are asked to think about how important empathy is in our lives, and to work on developing it as a way to fight loneliness and indifference. So, this sign isn't just a warning that someone dangerous is nearby. It's also a lesson of how important it is to be kind and understanding to everyone we meet. It's a call to follow the historical principles of virtue, wisdom, and kindness, which will help build strong relationships that are truly important and rewarding. Sign 2. Being manipulated. The presence of a possibly dangerous person in our lives is indicated by the subtle and complicated sign of manipulation. There is a strong focus in history philosophy on the value of being true to yourself and having inner freedom. These are values that are directly threatened by influence. When someone uses trickery, twisted reasoning, or even emotional pressure to persuade others to act contrary to their own interests or values, often without them realizing it, this warning sign shows itself in the self. Stoicism, which stresses the importance of being logical and having control over your own feelings and actions, is a strong way to deal with and stop influence. One of the most famous thinkers in history, Seneca, tells us how important it is to be in charge of our own lives and not let other people change them the way they want. This hits home when we're being manipulated because it makes us think about what other people are trying to do and helps us become more wise and emotionally independent. Manipulation can come in many forms, from simple praise meant to win our trust to more complex blame, and victimizing meant to make us feel unsafe and reliant on the manipulator. This kind of behavior not only breaks down trust and respect in relationships, but it can also make people feel lost and confused. Stoicism gives us the wisdom to understand that, while we cannot control the acts of others, we can control how we react to them. Understanding this is a key part of not giving in to manipulation because it helps us stay focused on our values and goals and not let other people's power games bring us down. Stoicism also teaches us how to be alert and present of mind, which are important skills for figuring out when someone is trying to trick you by using details in their speech and actions. Strong self-awareness and understanding of our own feelings and values makes us less vulnerable to outside effects and better able to set healthy limits. Therefore, this sign of manipulation serves as a reminder of the significance of developing our inner fortitude, autonomy, and wisdom, in addition to alerting us to the presence of potentially dangerous people in our lives. In addition to protecting our integrity, facing influence with serenity and historical wisdom enables us to foster more genuine and polite relationships that are based on the real values of freedom and human decency. Sign 3. Frequently telling lies. Someone who lies and cheats on you a lot can be a very scary and telling sign that they might be dangerous in your life. We can gain insight into how to deal with this problem from historical philosophy, which places a lot of value on the virtue of truth and personal ethics. Stoics believed that living in harmony with nature meant being devoted to the truth. They believed that being honest not only made relationships stronger, but also helped people grow in character and wisdom. If someone lies a lot, it makes any relationship shaky, whether it's personal, professional, or social. Once someone starts lying to get what they want, it not only breaks trust, but also changes reality, making it easier for mistakes and fights to happen. If someone is dishonest all the time, it could mean that they are trying to hide something more evil or are using people and situations to get what they want without caring about the results. One of the most important thinkers in history, Epictetus, tells us to focus on what we can control and accept what lies beyond. This historical wisdom helps us understand that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control how we react to their actions. This means staying honest, looking for the truth, and keeping ourselves safe from the bad effects of lying. The practice of thought and self-examination, which are crucial for figuring out what other people are trying to say and do, are also taught to us by Stoicism. By learning more about our own values and principles, we can better tell when lies are threatening them and decide how to handle them. To deal with dishonesty, you need to have strong courage. This doesn't mean having to fight someone physically, but having the courage to stand up for the truth and set clear limits with people who don't accept honesty. In this situation, courage shows how committed we are to being honest and keeping our relationships healthy. So, this sign of lying a lot is not only a warning that someone might be dangerous, but it also makes us think about how important it is to be truthful and honest in our own lives. We are urged to face this problem through the lens of Stoicism, with wisdom, ethics, and a strong commitment to the values that make us good and moral people. 4. Behavior that is hard to control. Controlling behavior is a scary sign that we might be working with someone who could be dangerous. The way people act when they try to control or influence other people's actions, thoughts, and feelings goes against ancient lessons that value freedom, personal liberty, and mutual respect. In order to live a life of virtue and balance, historical philosophy teaches us to take control of our own lives and internal responses rather than trying to control others. Excessive jealousy, constant tracking of someone's actions, separation from friends and family, setting limitations for no reason, and the need for approval in all choices are just a few examples of how controlling behavior can show itself in the self. These actions not only hurt the person's pride and freedom, but they also show that the boss is very afraid and doesn't trust them. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman ruler and historical philosopher, said that it was important to live in peace with others and accept their freedom and individuality. He serves as a reminder that real power lies in the capacity to keep serenity and self-sufficiency even in the face of difficulties. This historical wisdom tells us to think about our own freedom and take steps to protect it when someone is directing us. Stoicism also advises us to show care and try to understand the reasons behind controlling behavior, but it doesn't say that this behavior is okay or justifiable. We can deal with situations with kindness and wisdom if we understand that people who try to control others are also human and have problems inside that make them do that. This will help us find answers that keep our ethics and support healthy relationships. Historical philosophy also teaches us how to protect our independence by setting clear and strong limits. This can mean being honest about our wants and needs, not taking part in power struggles, and, if necessary, staying away from relationships that hurt our freedom and sense of self-worth. To deal with controlling behavior, you need to be brave, know yourself, and care deeply about your own freedom and well-being. We can react to these challenges in a productive and healthy way by applying historical principles, keeping our inner serenity, and building relationships based on freedom and mutual respect. This sign thus serves to warn us of the presence of a potentially dangerous person, while also emphasizing the significance of developing our own virtue, independence, and fortitude in the face of adversity. Sign 5. A history of bad relationships. A past of bad relationships is a warning sign that we should pay attention to, because it could mean that we are with someone who is dangerous. This sign can be understood and responded to better by looking at it through the lens of historical philosophy, which stresses the value of good relationships and character growth. Historicists believe that people are naturally social and that how we deal with others shows what our deepest values are and how morally developed we are. If you have a lot of bad relationships, it could mean that you have trouble making healthy bonds, resolving disagreements in a healthy way, or even that you tend to act in harmful or violent ways. These kinds of trends hurt not only the people involved personally, but also the well-being and social order of the community, which are important ideas in political philosophy. Seneca, one of the most famous thinkers in history, tells us that the only way to find real happiness and virtue is to live by reason, which means treating others with justice, kindness, and respect. When someone has a past of bad relationships, it makes us think about the kinds of relationships they've had and how they might have affected our own lives and well-being. Stoicism also tells us to be smart and not make snap decisions. It also stresses how important it is to keep our peace of mind and personal ethics. When we notice this trend in someone, we should carefully think about whether and how we can help them think about and improve their relationships, while also making sure we set healthy limits for ourselves so we don't hurt ourselves in the process. Coming to terms with this fact also gives us a chance to show historical kindness by realizing that relationship problems can be signs of deeper problems and ongoing pain. Compassion doesn't make us put up with bad behavior, though. Instead, it pushes us to find answers that help us grow as people and keep relationships peaceful. So, this sign isn't just a warning about possible risks. It's also a call to think about our own relationships and how we can help make society healthy and better. Through the view of Stoicism, we are encouraged to tackle this problem with wisdom, balance, and a deep thought for the humanity and well-being of everyone involved. We should always try to build partnerships based on respect, understanding, and kindness. Sign 6. Being hostile. Aggression, whether it's physical or vocal, is a very scary sign that we might be working with someone who could be dangerous. An important way to understand and deal with violence is through historical philosophy, which teaches us to seek peace of mind and live in unity with others through the practice of virtue. Historians say that we should try to keep our serenity and reason even when we are provoked or threatened, because having control over our own reactions is what really shows how strong and free we are. Stoicism's basic ideas, like practicing justice, balance, and respect for human decency, are all broken by aggression. Aggression as a way to express feelings or try to control others shows that the person can't handle their feelings, anger, and problems in a healthy and productive way. Not only does this behavior hurt and scare those around the attacker, but it also hurts the aggressor and takes them off the road of virtue and inner peace. One of the founders of Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, tells us of the value of treating wrong with kindness and evil with good, staying true to ourselves, and not letting other people's bad behavior influence how we act. When we see aggression, we should use this wisdom to try to figure out why people are acting this way without responding with aggression ourselves. Stoicism also teaches us the value of establishing healthy and clear limits in order to keep ourselves safe and foster respect for one another. This can mean being clear about what we want, asking for help from outside sources when we need it, and sometimes separating ourselves from the source of the aggression to protect our health. Stoicism also pushes people to show understanding and kindness because it knows that anger often comes from pain, fear, or feeling unsafe inside. Even though this doesn't give us permission to be violent, it can help us look at the situation with compassion and try to find answers that help healing and peace as much as possible. So, this aggressive sign is not only a warning about possible danger, but also a chance to think about how we can respond, be strong, and show kindness. We can protect our health and help build better, more peaceful relationships for ourselves and those around us by treating violence with historical wisdom and serenity. Sign 7. Not taking care of things. If someone doesn't take responsibility for their actions and the results of those actions, that's a big sign that they might be dangerous. The focus of historical philosophy on self-mastery, virtue, and the significance of living by reason gives us a way to look at this sign and decide what to do about it. Accepting responsibility for one's deeds is very important for historicists because they believe it helps people grow as people and keeps society running smoothly. If someone always avoids taking responsibility for their actions and instead blames others or their situation for their mistakes and failures, it shows that they are not only honest and mature, but also don't want to grow and learn from their mistakes. Because it hurts trust and mutual respect, which are important for healthy and positive relationships, this behavior can cause a loop of denial, conflict, and relationship breakdown. While reading Epictetus, one of the most important thinkers in history, it is important to remember that we can only control our actions and reactions to things that happen to us. This concept goes against the idea of not taking responsibility for one's actions, because it means trying to control others' lives by blaming them for one's own problems and mistakes. When we see this sign, Stoicism tells us to be objective and understanding, and to remember how important it is for each person to take responsibility for their actions as a way to grow and develop. As responsible people, we are also asked to think about how we live our lives, making sure they are in line with our ideals and beliefs, and setting a good example. Stoicism also teaches us how important it is to set healthy limits and make our expectations about responsibility and mutual commitment clear in a strong way. This means having an open conversation about what happens when you do something and how important it is for everyone to take responsibility for their actions as a way to build trust and respect in relationships. Additionally, when we see someone else not taking responsibility, we should back and guide them as much as possible to help them see this and change their behavior. Stoicism, on the other hand, recognizes that we need to know our boundaries and look out for our emotional and mental health, especially when efforts to help don't lead to good changes. So, this sign isn't just a warning that someone might be dangerous. It's also a lesson of how important it is to take responsibility for our own actions and make sure that we live our lives with virtue, honesty, and respect for others. We can create an environment of growth, learning, and peace for both ourselves and those around us by treating a lack of duty with historical wisdom and kindness. Sign 8. Charm on the surface. On the surface, superficial charm may seem attractive at first, but it can be a big red flag that someone could be dangerous. Historical philosophy, which values honesty, truthfulness, and depth in relationships, gives us a key way to look at this and figure out what to do about it. Historians say that a person's true worth lies in their character and virtue, not in how well they can attract people or make an impression. A lot of the time, superficial charm is just a front for bad motives or a lack of real substance. If someone relies too much on their ability to charm or get attention without being real in their relationships, they may be trying to control or take advantage of others. In the past, people lived their lives based on reason, justice, and mutual respect. This behavior goes against those ideas. Cicero, a famous historical philosopher, says that people should be judged by their deeds and values, not by what they say or how they look. If someone is charming on the surface but doesn't do anything good, it's a lesson that we should look for deeper, more permanent traits in the people we choose to hang out with. Stoicism tells us to be careful and wise around people who seem nice on the surface, and to keep a critical eye on their true aims and actions. To do this, you have to carefully look at the person's deeds and see if they match up with the way they talk. By doing this, we protect our honor and steer clear of any possible trickery or lying. Stoicism also tells us how important it is to build relationships based on honesty, openness, and respect for each other. This means that you value relationships that are meaningful because they are honest and real, not just because they are shallow or based on looks. Lastly, when we see fake charm, It makes us think about our own values and the kind of relationships we want to have. True human relationship, which goes beyond surface level and is based on respect, kindness, and virtue, is what historical wisdom urges us to pursue. This way, the sign of shallow charm both warns us to be careful and strengthens our resolve to find deeper, more real connections with other people. Sign 9. You feel like you need to move things along quickly. When we feel like we need to move forward quickly in a relationship, it can be a scary sign that someone with questionable goals is in our lives. Historical philosophy, which encourages balance, patience, and careful thought before moving, can help you figure out what to do in this case. Historians teach us that haste is the enemy of virtue, and that we should be cool and wise when making big choices, especially ones that affect our relationships with other people. Some people try to rush a relationship by skipping over the normal steps of getting to know each other and growing together. This could mean that they want control or emotional dependence instead of a real, healthy bond. This pressure can show itself in many different ways, such as expecting major promises in a short amount of time, early statements of love, or exclusivity before both parties are ready and happy with it. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman ruler and historical philosopher, says that we should live in harmony with nature, which means that we should follow the time and flow of every process in life. The rush to improve relationships goes against this idea and suggests that people are trying to force results without letting ties grow naturally. Stoicism tells us to stay independent and not give in to the pressure that other people put on us when we are under this kind of stress. This means being clear about our goals and boundaries and making sure that any growth in the relationship is fair and based on equal respect and understanding. By doing this, we protect our honesty and help relationships become more fair and important. Stoicism also tells us how important it is to become self-aware and self-knowledge, which are important skills for figuring out what we want and need in a relationship. This helps us figure out when the need to move quickly doesn't fit with our values or the kind of long-lasting ties we want. When we see a sign that says we need to move relationships along fast, we should think about what kind of ties we have and how important it is to be patient, moderate, and grow our relationships consciously. By looking at history, we can learn that real power lies in being able to use common sense and value other people's time, which leads to relationships based on honesty, patience, and virtue. No respect for your limits is the 10th sign. When someone doesn't respect our personal space, it's a scary sign that they might be dangerous. This behavior goes against the historical ideas of respecting each other's rights, letting people make their own decisions, and caring about what other people want and need. The importance of setting healthy limits that safeguard our psychological and emotional purity is taught to us by historical philosophy. When someone constantly breaks our rules, whether by invading our privacy, not caring about how we feel, or forcing us to do something we don't want to, it shows that they don't value us and are trying to control or dominate us. This kind of behavior can't exist in a good and balanced relationship, where respect and understanding are very important. Epictetus, who was one of the most important writers in Stoicism, says that we should know what we can control and accept what we can't. Establishing and protecting our personal limits is within our control in this situation and is a right that cannot be taken away. When our lines are being crossed, we should be strong and clear, stating our limits and explaining what will happen if they are not respected. Stoicism also tells us to be firm while showing kindness, knowing that when people break the rules, there may be fears, doubts, or mistakes that need to be cleared up. For our own safety and well-being, it is important to be able to clearly state our wants and boundaries in both situations. Being able to think about and value oneself is another thing that history philosophy teaches us. We build self-esteem and put ourselves in a better position to expect the same respect from others when we respect our own limits. To do this, we have to be aware of our own rights, ideals, and wants, and be ready to stay away from people or situations that put them at risk. We should think about what it means to have a truly healthy relationship and look for ties that are based on equal respect, honesty, and caring about each other's needs when our lines are crossed. We should respect our independence and build partnerships that make our lives better, help us grow as people, and value our ethics according to historical wisdom. Therefore, this sign serves as a reflection of the innate value of each person and the significance of developing relationships that respect that value, base it on the fortitude, dignity, and virtue that Stoicism so values. Sign 11. Stories that don't make sense. When someone tells us stories that don't make sense, it could mean that they are telling us lies or that they are a dangerous person in our lives. With its focus on truth, honesty, and sincerity, historical philosophy gives us a strong foundation for understanding how important it is to find and address these differences. For historicists, living in line with nature also means living in line with the truth, because being honest is important for building character and having good relationships with other people. We should be careful when we read stories that change a lot, have details that don't match up, or seem to hide more than they show. There may be efforts to lie, hide information, or make a fake picture of oneself if these things don't match up. Historical principles of openness and mutual respect say that this behavior is not acceptable. These principles are necessary for building relationships based on trust and understanding. Marcus Aurelius, a famous philosopher from ancient times, tells us that it's important to be fair and good in both our deeds and our words. Inconsistencies in stories go against this idea, showing that words and facts are not always the same. In light of this observation, we are asked to be wise, carefully examining the information given and looking for uniformity and clarity. When someone seems to be lying, Stoicism tells us to treat them with kindness and understanding, knowing that their actions could be caused by fears, phobias, or mistakes that need to be cleared up. But this doesn't mean taking dishonesty without question. Instead, it means actively participating in a helpful way, stressing how important truth and honesty are in our relationships. Additionally, Stoicism teaches us to stay true to ourselves no matter what other people do. This imperative lies in being honest with ourselves about our words and deeds, serving as a model of sincerity and openness. By doing this, we not only protect our own honor, but we also create a space where being honest is valued and pushed. Because there are holes in the stories, they make us think about how important it is to be honest in our own lives and in the relationships we build. For historical wisdom tells us to seek the truth, understand, and be honest. This makes it easier for us to make real bonds based on trust and respect for a shared reality. This sign is a good warning that we need to be careful and alert to make sure that our relationships are based on honesty and truth. 12th sign, not following the rules and laws. Not following the rules and laws is a sign of concern that could mean someone is possibly dangerous in our area of coexistence. Because they are deliberately ignoring the rules and other people's rights, this behavior goes against the community's history of teaching justice, mutual respect, and getting along with others. History tells us that justice is an important virtue for a healthy and moral life because it upholds social order and the idea that each person should make a positive addition to the well-being of the group. People who don't care about the rules and laws that guide society not only put their own morals at risk, but they also put the safety and peace of the whole community at risk. This kind of behavior can range from small offenses to more major crimes. In either case, it shows a lack of respect for the systems that keep society safe and in order. One of the most famous thinkers in history, Cicero, talks about how important it is to live in peace with others, follow the law, and work for the general good. This peace is threatened by people who don't follow the law and social rules. This kind of behavior shows a selfish and possibly harmful attitude that doesn't care about other people's well-being. Stoicism tells us to follow the rules and laws of society when we see this sign, because they are important for keeping the peace and ensuring justice in society. This responsibility lies in following the rules and making a good addition to the well-being of the community. We show our support for the ideals of justice, mutual respect, and living together peacefully by doing this, which creates a safe and peaceful atmosphere for everyone. A state of alertness and duty in which we not only look out for our own safety, but also think about what we can do to help maintain social order and justice. This can mean doing real things, like talking about how important rules and laws are, reporting harmful behavior to the right people, or even staying away from people whose actions disrespect the basics of getting along with others. As part of our commitment to virtue and justice, historical philosophy also tells us how important it is to follow laws and rules within ourselves. By following these rules, we show others how to live a good life and improve the pillars of a fair and peaceful society. Because of this sign of breaking the law and social rules should remember us how important it is to value and promote justice, order, and mutual respect in our communities. Knowing about the past helps us face these problems with wisdom, bravery, and a strong dedication to the values that support a good and peaceful society, which supports everyone's well-being and respect for human rights. Sign 13. Being alone. Isolation, particularly when it's caused by someone else, is a very scary sign that someone might be trying to control or manipulate you, which can be dangerous. Cutting someone off from their support networks, like friends, family, and the community, is not in line with the historical ideas of personal freedom, mutual support, and living together peacefully in a community. History, which stresses the value of social connections and each person's role in achieving the greater good, tells us that being forced to live alone goes against the very nature of a good and socially connected life. Because of jealousy, insecurity, or a need for control, someone who tries to isolate another person hurts that person's mental and emotional health and makes it impossible for them to live a full life with the support and variety of experiences that come from having friends and family. This behavior clearly shows that you don't value other people's right to be independent, and that you want to change the normal way that people interact with each other so that people are more dependent and submissive. One of the most important thinkers in history, Epictetus, tells us that we should value our inner freedom and fight any kind of abuse or control that could hurt it. When someone isolates themselves, they should know how bad this is and protect their independence by getting help from people they trust and strengthening their bonds with people who value and respect them. Stoicism also tells us to become strong and emotionally independent, which makes it easier to deal with problems and resist attempts to shut ourselves off. To make sure we can keep our mental health and well-being, this means getting clear on our ideals, making our support network stronger, and getting professional help when we need it. In addition, history philosophy tells us of how important it is to care about other people's well-being and help them when we notice that they may be separating themselves. This means giving them a hand, listening to them without judging, and telling them to find ways to get back in touch with their community and the people who care about and love them. So, This sign of loneliness is not only a warning about possible danger in a relationship, but also a call to action to protect our freedom and well-being, as well as the freedom and well-being of others. From what we know about the past, we can face being alone with courage, wisdom, and a firm dedication to personal freedom and social ethics, while building relationships based on mutual respect, honor, and support. Sign 14. Pushing out. As a psychological defense strategy, projection is when someone blames others for their own feelings, thoughts, or bad traits. This is a scary sign that could mean a toxic relationship is starting to form. This behavior, which twists reality to avoid facing flaws or fears, goes against the historical ideas of self-awareness, being honest with others and yourself, and taking responsibility for your actions. The past teaches us that real wisdom lies in being able to honestly and clearly see our own thoughts and actions, accept ourselves, and work to make up for our flaws. When someone uses projection, it usually leads to confusion and misunderstanding because it changes the way people talk to each other and understand each other. This can cause fights that aren't necessary, anger, and a loss of trust, which is bad for the health and security of relationships. People who put their problems onto others don't deal with or work on their own problems, so they stay in a state of ignorance and stagnation. This stops them from growing as a person. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most respected Roman emperors and thinkers in history, said that we need to look inside ourselves, see our flaws, and accept them as important steps toward being real and growing as a person. When faced with projection, we are told to become truly self-aware so that we can both tell when this dynamic is aimed at us and make sure that we are not using projection as a defense strategy. Stoicism tells us to treat projection with understanding and compassion, seeing it as a sign of a fight inside. It does, however, remind us of how important it is to set healthy limits and speak up when we think our borders or truth are being twisted. This means having an open conversation about how we see things, how we feel, and how we can help each other understand, always with respect and kindness. Building self-awareness and mental strength also makes us stronger against projection, so we can keep our ethics and sense of reality even when errors try to change them. Not only do we protect our own emotional health, but we also set a good model of emotional growth and understanding that can help other people deal with their own problems in a better way. So, this projection sign is a call to strengthen our dedication to being real, getting our emotions straight, and growing as people. When we face these kinds of problems, historical knowledge tells us to do so with wisdom, kindness, and a strong dedication to the truth. This makes relationships better, clearer, and more rewarding for everyone. Sign 15. Mood changes that happen quickly. Rapid mood swings are when a person's emotions change quickly and without warning. They can be a scary sign of emotional instability and a potential danger in relationships. The historical principles of balance, modesty, and emotional control teach us to seek serenity and stability in the face of life's changes, and this behavior goes against those principles. Historians say that real freedom comes from being in charge of our own emotions, which lets us live with virtue and reason no matter what is going on around us. People around someone who has frequent mood swings are left feeling unsure and tense, and it may also mean that they are having trouble dealing with their own feelings, complaints, and worries in a healthy way. When people act in this way, it can cause pointless arguments, confusion, and even hostile or dishonest behavior, which is bad for the quality and safety of relationships. Epictetus, one of the most important thinkers in history, tells us not to let outside events or other people's actions upset our inner peace. When someone close to us goes through sudden mood swings, We are told to stay calm, not responding emotionally to others' changes without thinking, and try to understand the situation with understanding and a wider view. Stoicism also tells us to talk about this situation in an open and honest way, being polite as we share our thoughts and worries and trying to figure out why these mood swings are happening. This could mean telling them to get help from an expert if their mood swings are really bad and affect their life and relationships a lot. Also, becoming more self-aware and emotionally strong is very important for both people who have fast mood swings and people who are affected by them. This helps us understand and deal with our feelings in a healthy way, which is good for our mental health and makes our relationships stronger. So, this sign of mood swings is a reminder of how important it is for people in relationships to take care of each other and keep their emotions in check. We should always try to create an atmosphere of respect, empathy, and emotional support for everyone involved, guided by historical wisdom, as we face these challenges with understanding, patience, and an ongoing commitment to balance and personal growth. Sign 16. Being a victim all the time. Constant abuse, in which someone constantly puts themselves in the victim role in different scenarios, no matter what, can be a sign of a problematic and possibly manipulative relationship dynamic. This behavior goes against what people have learned throughout history about being responsible, having self-control, and seeking virtue by meeting life's problems honestly and bravely. Historicists believe that it is important for personal growth and moral character to face obstacles and take responsibility for our actions. Being a victim all the time can be a way to control other people's feelings, get attention or pity, or avoid taking responsibility. This makes it hard for people to really talk to each other and understand each other because the story is always skewed to support the self-victimization point of view. This kind of behavior makes it impossible to solve problems in a healthy way and build relationships based on fairness, honesty, and respect. Seneca, one of the most famous thinkers in history, tells us that we should face our problems with courage and look within ourselves for the strength to get through adversity rather than giving up and becoming victims of our situations. When we are constantly being harmed, we are told to treat the situation with understanding but also toughness. This helps us see things in a more fair and realistic way. Stoicism tells us to support open communication and self-reflection, which can help the person see thought patterns that might be making them feel like they are always being victimized. As part of this, you can help them find ways to gain more control over their lives and how they react to adversity. You can also promote personal responsibility and freedom. Another important thing we can do is work on our own grit and awareness so that we can keep our cool and not let emotional manipulation get the best of us. This helps us help others in a real way while also keeping our own feelings and honesty safe. So, this sign of always being a victim is both a warning about a relationship that could become harmful and a chance to practice the historical principles of kindness, honesty, and growth for both parties. In order to create an environment where true strength and virtue can thrive for ourselves and those around us, historical wisdom directs us to approach these challenges with a combination of self-reflection, bold communication, and an unwavering commitment to group well-being. Sign 17. They don't care about what you need. A lack of interest in other people's wants is a very telling sign of an imbalanced relationship dynamic that could be harmful. This behavior, which shows not caring about another person's wants, needs, or mental health, goes against the historical lessons of empathy, justice, and how important it is to value and respect our shared humanity. For historicists, building partnerships based on shared understanding, support, and respect is important for the health of both individuals and groups. If someone doesn't seem to care about other people's needs, it could mean they don't understand them and are more likely to be selfish and one-sided in relationships. This kind of behavior can make people feel alone, frustrated, and angry, which is bad for the health and quality of relationships. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Roman emperors and thinkers in history, makes us think about how important it is to live in peace with others, be kind, and try to make their lives better. People who don't care about other people's needs should make us think about how important relationships are and what we can do to create a setting where people respect and care for each other. Stoicism tells us to talk about this situation in an open and honest way, making sure we say what we want and how we feel in a way that is polite and clear, and then asking the other person to share their own thoughts and needs. Setting healthy limits and rethinking what is expected in the relationship can help make sure that there is a fair amount of give and take. The value of emotional self-reliance is also emphasized by historical philosophy, which helps us improve our capacity for self-satisfaction and happiness while still being open to relationships that are healthy and fulfilling. This clear sign of not caring about other people's needs is a strong reminder of how important it is to build relationships based on understanding, kindness, and respect for each other. The lessons we can learn from history tell us to approach these problems with a combination of self-reflection, bold communication, and a steadfast dedication to the well-being of the group, creating an environment where everyone can thrive and feel appreciated. Sign 18. Using threats or bullying. If someone in any kind of relationship uses threats or bullying, it's clear that they are being cruel and could be dangerous. It is against the basic historical principles of respect for human rights, justice, and the search for peace in interpersonal relationships to act in a way that tries to make someone afraid, submit, or be controlled. Historians believe that real power and strength come from being able to uphold virtue, justice, and serenity despite adversity, not from dominating or subjugating others. Not only does someone who uses threats and bullying show that they don't care about other people's safety and freedom, but they also can't handle differences or conflicts in a healthy and productive manner. This kind of behavior can make people afraid, suspicious, and alone, which is bad for relationships' health and security. Epictetus was a historical philosopher whose teachings stress the importance of being strong inside and having control over one's own reactions. He reminds us that we shouldn't let other people's bad behavior, like threats or intimidation, ruin our inner peace or make us give up our integrity. People tell us to stay cool, get help from outside sources if we need it, and take steps to protect our safety and health. Stoicism also tells us to be forceful, making it clear what our limits are and why certain behavior is unacceptable without using fear or violence. To do this, we need to be clear about what kind of respect and honor we expect, and be ready to leave situations or relationships that don't meet those standards. Also, historical philosophy tells us how important it is to have kindness, both for ourselves and for others, because violent behavior usually comes from pain, fear, or a lack of security inside. Understanding this better can help us deal with the abuse in a way that promotes healing and good change, even though it doesn't excuse it. So, this sign of threats or harassment is not only a warning about very bad behavior, but also a call to action to stand up for our worth, get help, and create a safe and respectful space for everyone. In order to build relationships based on virtue, understanding, and true respect, historical wisdom directs us to face these challenges with courage, clarity, and a steadfast dedication to justice and the well-being of all concerned. A strong need for praise can be a sign of a tendency toward relationships that are one-sided and could be misleading. These actions, which involve constantly looking for approval, attention, and praise from others, are very different from the lessons learned in the past, which stressed independence, balance, and finding a real sense of worth within oneself. For scholars, virtue, self-improvement, and being able to find happiness within oneself are what bring true joy and happiness, not other people's approval or praise. When someone needs praise too much, it can mean they are unhealthily dependent on outside approval, which can make them act manipulatively or try to take other people's attention and mental resources. When this happens, balance and exchange can be lost in relationships, and respect and attention become trading chips instead of real signs of love and appreciation. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman ruler and historical philosopher, tells us how important it is to live in harmony with nature and find peace of mind through self-reliance and control over the emotions. When we feel like we need praise too much, we should think about how important it is to build a sense of worth and self-esteem that doesn't depend on praise from others. Stoicism tells us to treat this situation with understanding and kindness, knowing that people need to connect and be appreciated. It also stresses how important it is to find a healthy balance between wanting to be admired and building a sense of self-worth. This could mean supporting the person to do self-reflection and self-development activities that help them be happy and proud of their own traits and accomplishments, even if other people don't agree with them. Furthermore, it is important to set healthy limits in relationships so that the need for praise doesn't get in the way of or deny the wants and well-being of others. This means being clear about what you expect from each other and wanting to talk about how to support and value each other in a fair and honest way. Because of this, an over-the-top need for praise is both a sign of a relationship that might not work out and a chance to practice the historical principles of self-reliance, balance, and personal growth. By fostering relationships based on mutual respect, sincerity, and real personal value, historical wisdom helps us to face these obstacles with understanding, thereby supporting both individual and group well-being. When someone's personal space, liberty, or privacy are violated, this is called invasion of privacy. It is a major sign of rudeness and could be dangerous in relationships. Individual freedom, dignity, and the importance of keeping relationships based on trust and mutual respect have been taught throughout history. This behavior, which includes things like going through personal belongings, listening in on conversations without permission, or insisting on knowing private details without respecting established boundaries, goes against these teachings. Based on the scholars, each person should be in charge of their own space, which includes their privacy and personal data. This shows a dedication to virtue and honesty. An invasion of privacy shows that the person involved does not care about the other person's well-being or rights, and it also shows that they are trying to control or abuse their power in a bad way. This behavior can make you feel weak, anxious, and like your trust has been broken, all of which are bad for any good relationship. As one of the most famous thinkers in history, Epictetus says that we should only control what we can reach and accept the freedom and liberty of others. When our privacy is invaded, we should restate our boundaries and make it clear that this behavior is not acceptable. This will help build an environment of trust and mutual respect again. Stoicism also tells us to practice both mental and emotional self-defense. This will help us protect our privacy and speak out against any invasion of it. This means doing things like taking real steps to protect our personal information and places, and getting legal or professional help when we need it. It's also important to be kind and understanding and to realize that even though invasion of privacy is wrong, people may do it out of doubts, fears, or mistakes that need to be dealt with in a healthy way. This means encouraging people to talk openly about their privacy, trust, and respect needs in relationships, and looking for answers that work for everyone. This sign of invasion of privacy is a strong reminder of how important it is to respect each person's right to be alone and their worth, and to build relationships based on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. While protecting our privacy and creating an environment of respect and understanding in our relationships, historical wisdom directs us to face these challenges with strength, clarity, and kindness, renewing our dedication to virtue and common well-being. This video talks about 20 important ways to spot someone who might be dangerous in our lives. There are many warning signs that we need to stay alert and protect our health and safety. These include lack of sensitivity, threats, projection, and invasions of privacy. Drawing on lessons from the past, we were reminded of how important it is to build relationships based on mutual respect, honesty, and kindness. This will create a healthy and rewarding environment for everyone. If we want to face these problems with wisdom, courage, and a strong commitment to virtue, we should follow the past principles of self-reliance, balance, and self-development. We can keep healthy relationships and protect our mental and physical space by practicing self-reflection, strong communication, and setting healthy limits.